everyone, and welcome back to the Hallmarkies podcast. You have joined us for a very special bonus episode of Chesapeake Chats. So thank you for that. I'm Kari, your host, and Kaycee is with me today.
Hi, friends. We are so excited right now.
So exciting because we have the honor and the privilege of interviewing the showrunner and executive producer of Chesapeake Chats, Mr. Phoef Sutton is here with us.
Hello, the showrunner of Chesapeake Shores.
Yes. Do you want to be the showrunner of our little podcast too?
Right. Welcome. We're so happy that you're here.
Well, I'm very happy to be here. It's been a joy to listen to you talk about the show, and it's very nice. I'm honored to be on.
Well, thank you. And so by now, you know, we genuinely like the show. I mean, we like this show so much. So honestly, I just wanted to say thank you. Thank you for giving it some TLC.
Well, you're welcome. You're welcome. I like the show too, and I've had a really, really good time doing it.
Yeah. And we could tell there was just such a levity and such a brightness to this season, I felt. And I was, as you probably had heard, I was a little apprehensive at first, just because I don't know how this is going to go. It's also been a long time since we've seen the cast. And I just remember sitting there that first episode going, okay.
And every week, that's what I was hoping for.
yes. And every week I'm like, I can't believe what I'm seeing right now. My mind is blown. I need to watch it again. I need to watch it again, and I need to watch it next week. And just in the finale, I don't know. There better be a season 6.
Well, have you seen the finale yet? Have you seen that?
No.
Okay. So that airs this Sunday. So
that airs this Sunday.
I'm very excited to see what people think, how people react to it.
Okay.
So I have a question about the finale real quick. Do you watch it then in real time every Sunday?
I actually do watch the show in real time with commercials and everything. And And I don't always watch my stuff, but I like the show. I like the show.
That's interesting that you don't always watch your stuff. I mean, you're there. Is there a reason?
Well, I mean, you see a show filmed, and then you're editing it, and you're doing sound mixing, and you're doing music. You see, so you see the episode a million times.
Yes.
So it's sort of like when it airs, it's like it's just airing. It's nice. Other people can see it, but it doesn't really seem. But this show I like to watch. Good. It's fun.
Well, before we get into the meat and potatoes of Chesapeake Shores, we just wanted to just shout out other things that you've done. This is not your first rodeo. You've had quite an illustrious career. You did Cheers that won two Emmys, and also, I have to shout out one of my favorite Hallmark mysteries, Darrow and Darrow.
Yes, I love those shows. I love the cast, Kim and Tom, and they were great. They were great.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Are we? Are there any possibilities for more? I know a lot of the Darrow fans are wondering about that.
I don't think they're going to do any more of those. I'm disappointed, actually, because I wrote another one that I thought was quite good, but they decided to not continue them.
Oh, that's too bad.
Is.
Really know why. I think they like it. I like it, but oh well.
Well,
yeah, I do wonder about that.
Yeah. Well, maybe we can start a Twitter campaign or something. They did resurrect Hannah Swenson Mysteries, the murder she baked, after 3 years. They're doing another Signed, Sealed, Delivered after 3 years. So, I mean,
that wouldn't hurt. Start a campaign.
Right.
I wasn't listening to your show, or if you do, did you do shows on Darrow and Darrow?
I believe we have recapped Darrow and Darrow.
Go back and listen to them, because I don't know, but oh man, they were a lot of fun.
Yes. Yeah. And I just thought it was so it was different because it was a courtroom drama. And when I was younger, I wanted to be a lawyer. So that's another reason why I'm like so invested in the characters and that
also the relationship of the mother and daughter, Wendy Malick with Kim Williams Pace. They was so good and so unusual. And I wrote for Boston Legal for 3 years too, so I kind of learned how to write TV law.
Yes.
Which is very different from real law. I don't hate to break it to you.
Oh yes.
But it was a lot of fun. I liked those a lot, and I thought it was kind of it was nice to have a show on the Hallmark Network where the person wasn't sort of accidentally stumbling upon a crime every time. I mean,
yes, that's true.
You're a baker and you find a dead body. After a while, you wonder why they find so many dead bodies. But
it's concerning.
But she was a lawyer, so it kind of the cases could come her way. But,
yes. And that's why I loved it so much. It's because it was different. They had a reason to be investigating these crimes and such. And so I just love that series.
Yeah. No, I liked it too. I think there was talk about doing it as a series. But it never quite came together.
Okay.
It was so hard to get the actors, because they were, Tom Cavanaugh was doing the Flash, and it was always hard to schedule it. But,
yeah. Okay.
That's got to be hard to write something that you love and then just kind of see it. Just kind of
happens all the time. It happens all the time, more often than not, actually.
Okay. So that's part of showbiz there.
Yes. That's definitely part of showbiz.
Well, would you tell us then how you got, so Darrow and Darrow, of course, was a Hallmark, for Hallmark. So how did then a couple years later, you get onto the project of Chesapeake Shores?
Well, I had watched Chesapeake Shores because, I was working for Hallmark. So I watched the stuff that was on the air and I liked it a lot. And loved the cast, just loved the setting, the scenery, so beautiful. And I grew up in Virginia, in Alexandria, Virginia. So it was right near the Chesapeake Bay area, which is very beautiful too, but not as beautiful as the Vancouver Island.
Right.
That is really a stunningly beautiful place. I mean, when you're there on the shore of the house, filming that stuff, you keep having to, this is a job up here. I mean, it's such a beautiful place. It's such a beautiful, and you can see seals and sometimes whales going by out on the water behind you there.
Yes.
Man, it's just gorgeous. But so and then I heard through my agent actually that there was a possibility that they were going to start up the show again, and they wanted a showrunner, and so I put my name in the ring, or threw my hat in the ring, I guess you say.
Yeah.
And Michelle and Randy had enjoyed working with me. I also did the Emma Fielding mysteries. So I'd worked with them quite a bit. I'd worked with Laurie Furneaux on everything. She's great. Yeah. And they thought, well, the reason they were hesitating was that since I was writing another Darrow, they were afraid I wouldn't have time. But then they decided not to do the Darrow, and so I had time. It was great. It was great. And of course, I had, I kept, I had some people who had worked on the show for a long, long time, particularly Nancy Silvers, who's, wrote the pilot and has been there from the very beginning, and Brian Ross, and our assistant, Sierra Van Giem. So they were kind of able to, because it's hard when you're taking over a show. It's been running for a long time. You have to be, really, 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 really familiar with it.
Yeah.
And so aside from watching the shows, for 40 times,
right.
It was also nice to have somebody there. You could say, doesn't that happen before, or did that happen, or how are they related, or who's the oldest kid? That was a big. We had to have a chart for who the oldest kid was.
Right.
Yes.
And but it was wonderful. I was very excited when they said yes.
Yeah.
I love that. I was going to ask you that. So if you could speak into more of how does a person who's now a new showrunner come into an established show and like get so familiar with the characters that you know their stories, you know them. I'm imagining you binge watching the show.
Oh yeah, sure. You binge watch the shows, but you know that's actually one of the things that you have to do when you're a television writer. You know, I mean, when I joined Cheers, it had been running for about 3 years,
Yeah.
and I certainly wasn't running it right away, but I did, you know, I did have to. And in those days, you couldn't binge watch.
No,
Right.
You just had to watch reruns and try and,
Right.
you know, and of course I'd seen the show, of course, because
Yeah.
everybody watched that show. But you know, the trick is to sort of to write in the characters' voices, to keep the characters' voices consistent, to keep, but at the same time bring something of yourself to it. And also to write in the style of the show, in the style of, you know, Boston Legal. You had to write in the style of David Kelly. You know, that was a, you know, it was no point in coming in with a show that sounded differently from him.
Right.
Right.
When you're writing those scenes on the balcony with Shatner and James Spader smoking cigars and talking about the case, you know, you had that in your mind. You had that those rhythms in your ear and all that. So that's kind of how you do it. And then, you know, the actors were on this show. The actors were so good. I mean, Treat is, oh man, he's wonderful. And you know, I just could see ways in which it could.
Yeah.
I mean, particularly Connor. I mean, I sort of saw Connor kind of as a full of potential.
Yes.
He was full of potential, both the actor, you know, Andrew, but also the character. You know, he the feeling that he'd kind of been going into a track that was where he was kind of trapped all the time, and that he wanted to get out of it and do something on his own. And, so I really wanted to do that. I really wanted to get him on into that law firm in Chesapeake Shores and doing that. And and you know, a lot of it was following cues that had been laid in. You know, there were the sense that the law firm he was going to work for was somehow evil and dangerous, and you know, so.
Well, Connor specifically, you have totally grown him up. You know, like you've grown him up, and he's had such a journey this year that, like you said, bursting with potential, and he's accomplishing things, and we're all rooting for him now instead of like, what's he gonna do? Where's Connor gonna blow up at now? He's not like that anymore. And
Well, I really like that character. I really like that character, and I just, you know, at a certain point in a person's life, they can kind of grow into themselves and become who they ought to be. And I think he's doing that.
It was about time for Connor too. Yeah, for sure. I mean, and learning all those life lessons in such a seamless way. It didn't go from, we have immature Connor one season, then we jump into like he's all wise and sophisticated. Like he really did take this journey, and even in the beginning of the season he was still a little like, all right, you know, I got this. And then once he was realizing how corrupt his bosses were, I mean, that's when he really just started to take a step back and just look at things, and he's letting people help him, like his dad. I mean, that was one thing I appreciated seeing, is his growth in his relationship with his father. I think that was very important to see.
And even Mick is growing. You know, you don't stop growing. So you know, he's becoming, I think, more of the father that he always kind of wanted to be.
Well, I like that idea of, you know, it's a biblical idea, but you know, where these wasted years, maybe you have some wasted years in your life, and they are returned to you, you know, like that you can make up for those wasted years. And
and that's very true, in a way that kind of are all going through that.
Exactly.
Yes. So a question we have here is, when you started to write and film season 5, we know that there was a change up in the cast. And we know that's show business, and specifically speaking of Jesse Metcalf leaving. Can you tell us a little bit more about transitioning into bringing in the new characters like Robert Buckley and some of the others?
Well,
Was that intended, or was Jesse's leaving the catalyst for bringing on?
let me take you back
Evan?
through the rather convoluted beginnings of this season,
Right.
because it started, God, when was it? I guess it started in 2020. We got the room together, the writing room together
Mhm.
in North Hollywood, and we were working for February through then, and then March 13th happened, and that was when
Yes.
all the quarantine started.
Mhm.
And so that was kind of scary, and then we realized we wouldn't be able to shoot it
Mhm.
at when we thought we were going to shoot it. We were going to have to push the shoot, and we kept pushing the shoot a little bit, so that we were going through this thing where they'd call us up and they say, okay, we're only going to do 7 episodes this year,
Oh.
and we're going to
Oh.
start it we're going to start filming in after April or something like that.
Yeah.
And then we're trying to do the room on Zoom, the writing room on Zoom, and we had about, I think, 4 episodes written at that time.
Hmm.
Then they said, well, no, we're going to do 6 episodes. We're going to do 6 episodes all total for the season and start filming it later. And so I thought, well, God, I don't like that, but okay. So I had the whole season worked out. And the end of the season was supposed to be the wedding of Jess and David. Okay.
Ah.
But I moved that to episode 6, because that was then going to be the end of the season.
Yeah.
And then they called up and they said, we're not going to shoot it this year. We're going to shoot it next year.
Yeah.
We want to go back to doing 10 episodes. So I
Okay.
thought, oh, that's great. So I thought, well, okay, so I'll put the storyline back the way it was. And they said, no, we like the wedding coming at the midpoint. We like that. We like everything you've done. You just have to come up with a new end to the season, a new last 4 episodes for the season. As if, why not? Now, the advantage is, of course, that I then had a lot more time to write, because we weren't shooting it until April of 2021 or March of 2021.
Yeah.
And so I was able to, and by then they shut the room down, so we didn't have any I didn't have any writers with me, but I only had 4 episodes to write. So I me and my co-exec Mark Jordan Legan, we wrote the last 4 episodes. And so I went up there to Vancouver Island, for the 2-week quarantine you had to be in before you go. And they sort of locked in a hotel room for 4 days, but the 4 weeks, but the 2 weeks, I'm sorry, 2 weeks, but the view was great. It was that view behind you there, pretty much.
Right.
Worth it. But we had all the scripts written for the show.
Wow.
Every script written for the show.
That's
It was
unique.
fantastic. I felt so ahead of the game. And then Jesse decided he didn't want to do it again anymore. And so we had to, that was about a week and a half before we were going to production. So we had to take the scripts apart. We had to write Jesse out of the show and write a new character for the show. A new love interest for Abby, I suppose.
Right.
And it was, I was very glad that I have been in this business for as long as I've been in it. I've been in this for business for like 30 years. So I was able to take a breath, say, okay. So, we were writing the whole season. We were writing it while we were shooting it. We were writing.
Oh, wow.
I didn't have but like 3 days off, Everything was, we were, because about, a third or a half of every episode had to be new.
Right.
And it's a long answer to your question, but
Love it.
That's all right.
The answer to your
Keep
question of whether or not of all the new characters. Well, Luke was in the show before, and
okay.
in the original 10 episodes, he was in there, and but Evan was not. Evan was a new creation, and I thought, I've been through this sort of thing before, because on Cheers, when Shelley Long left, we had to revamp the show, and what the Charles brothers did, which was very smart, was that they did a character who was completely different from Diane.
Okay.
I mean, Rebecca was not seen as a replacement for Diane, because she was not artistic, she was not upper class particularly, she was not intellectual, she was a hard-nosed businesswoman who was a emotional wreck underneath, and so I just said to myself, I have to do a character that's completely different from Trace, otherwise people will think it's just I'm just putting in another actor.
Yeah.
So I wanted a character who was I think it was Dan who thought he could be a wealthy guy who they're working with, Dan Paulson, the producer, and so I thought, okay, I'll go with that. And then I thought, well, you want him to be just the most optimistic, off the wall, just bouncing off the walls all the time. I sort of thought this is kind of an odd thing, but I sort of thought he should be like Tony Stark.
Okay.
He should be like a Tony Stark character who's just so confident and so fast thinking and so ahead of his game that he just seems like he's got no attention span.
Right.
And he seems like he's just a wild, off the wall character. And he's optimistic, and he's positive, and he's interested in everybody, and he and all these sort of things and I thought that could be a very annoying trait when you have that all the time. And then what we were just so damn lucky that we got Rob Buckley to play the part, because he could just embodied that totally. But when we hired Rob Buckley, I mean, the part hadn't been written yet. He just knew what the character description of the part was, and so it was a lot of faith on his part,
Totally.
and a lot of faith on our part too, because it was very improv. Improv, because we wrote it, but it was very as I saw him do it, I could see what he could do, and so it was really a cool thing. It was very exciting. I actually, it sounds scary, but it was scary, but it was exciting too.
The energy that you're describing translates on the screen, like it transfers out to the audience, and we're just watching, and it is exciting. It's exciting to watch this new character develop and get enmeshed in the family.
Well, and that was another thing I really wanted, because I always felt that Trace kind of kept himself apart from the family.
He did.
He was involved with Abby, but he kept him. So I wanted this character to be as in love with Mick as he was in love with Abby, as in love with Jess and David and all that. I wanted him to I wanted him to be a guy who had never had a family, who was then finding this sort of ready-made family to embrace him, and just and it all worked. It was great.
Definitely.
It really did. I mean, Evan's character, there are just so many layers. I mean, at first I'm like, this is a whole ping pong match. It's like he says something, she says something, he's just bouncing off the walls, and she's pinging him right back,
and it really showed, I think, a good side to Abby, because I mean, she's really good at sort of that light comic banter that she hadn't really gotten a chance to do before. So she and Rob got along really well. So that was cool. Nice, and it was just right. It was just right.
Yeah. And I mean, I will say, since probably season 2-ish, I was never the biggest Trace and Abby fan. That's very unpopular, I know, but I really like what we call Juicebox J, her I
love Jay.
Boyfriend or whatever.
Why have you made us love Jay?
I like Jay. Well, I mean, to be honest, a lot of the things that I write, I sort of I sort of think about, old movies or old television shows. I don't know, probably you shouldn't do that, but I do. And so what I thought was, you ever seen Philadelphia Story?
Oh yeah.
Have you seen the movie
I've not.
Philadelphia Story? Well, that's with Katharine Hepburn and Cary Grant and Jimmy Stewart.
Yes.
And those are the two guys she's deciding to be.
Mhm.
If you can imagine having to choose between Cary Grant and Jimmy Stewart, I mean, they're both great.
Yeah,
that's a really hard choice. It isn't like this other guy is just a lame guy
Right.
that's in there to be the one who isn't chosen. I sort of thought, it would be great to do that. And the other character that was from from other things was that I really felt that Evan needed, if Evan was a Tony Stark character, he needed an Alfred. He
Right.
needed
Yes.
he needed
He did.
someone who could look after him, and that was Mandrake.
Mandrake.
is
Love
the
him.
name.
Huh?
Mandrake. Is
Yeah.
this who you're talking about? This
Yeah,
Alfred,
yeah.
right?
Yeah,
He's
yeah.
such a great character.
Yeah, he's
Yeah.
great. He's great. And the actor, I mean, to be honest, when we originally conceived of the character, he was only going to have a line now and then, but the actor is so good that we just kept giving him more.
Oh,
Yeah.
he's excellent. Yeah.
Yeah. Wesley.
Yeah, we shall see what happens. Well, it was interesting to me that you said, Abby, Trace was leaving, so Abby needed this other kind of love interest. You had J. Ross right there. Was it never like a consideration to just kind of like propel them into a relationship? She had met him in season 4.
Well, it was always the idea that there would be, another two people that she would choose between.
Mhm.
And to be honest, I mean, it isn't really a love interest because they haven't done anything. I mean, they're not even,
Mhm.
they haven't done
That's
anything,
true.
it's just,
Yeah.
but so, I mean, I really wanted to give her a relationship with a person she was working with. And I love the idea of her working with Mick in the firm. I just think that's so much, it's so good to have her be a real part of the family and all that.
Mhm.
And she's trying to come to terms with working with this guy and, having this guy as a figure in her life before she's even thinking about him as a romantic interest.
Yes.
Yeah.
That works well for her, I think, in the journey
And-
that she's taking.
Yes.
Yeah. And Jay is just, I mean, Jay is just, the good guy who's always been there for her. And, initially she didn't want to be involved with anyone, because she wanted to just cool it for a while and just be on her own. But Jay stays there. And I think she is very, very interested and attracted to Jay. And he's great with the kids and he's a wonderful guy. And he's a charming person.
He is.
Actor,
He really is.
too.
Yeah.
The actor too.
She's really has a decision to make here. I'm excited. For
Yes.
Sunday.
Yeah.
Yes.
But-
And I will say, like, I think you've written the love triangles in the show very well, in the sense of the characters, all three involved, are so different from each other. They're all going through different journeys. They've all got layers to peel, and so I think that's one thing I appreciated this season, because I don't necessarily love triangles. I mean, who does really? But watching it, I think it really it made me go, okay, I would be good with either guy. I think either guy would bring a good they would be a good match for Abby, depending on what she's looking for and what she wants. And even with Bree, at first I really liked the dean, the professor, and I was like, oh yes, and then everything happened. I was like, oh no, like we're good with Luke.
Well, and again with Luke, that was sort of the idea, was to give Bree a person that who was totally unlike anybody she'd been with, because everybody she's been with has been, very artistic and intellectual and all that sort of thing. And he's a smart guy and everything, but he's had a hard time of it.
Yeah.
And that, I think, is a very interesting thing. And Jerry was, I mean, I'll defend Jerry a little bit and say that if you saw this person you were interested in dancing with somebody, and then you found out that he had been in prison,
Right.
and you just told her that to make sure she knew,
Yeah.
that's not necessarily the worst thing in the world.
Right.
What are you going to do? You're going to not tell her? I mean,
It's true. It's true. I think we just felt like, oh, there's such ulterior motives here, because you feel like you almost wonder if he's doing that because he senses he's the underdog, and he's like, wait.
Well, I mean, I think there is some truth to that too, but at the same time, what do you do? I mean, you have to let her know. You have to know if she knows.
Well, it made for really good television, and it made for a really good story. I mean, I was fine with him telling her and all that, because I knew he was going to. It was just one of those things. But I just thought, okay, I like where we're taking this. There's no, oh, maybe Jerry, oh, maybe Luke, oh, back and forth and wishy-washy for Bree. It was just very organic in how her love interests have kind of just wandered in and out of her life. And now we have this new character, like you said, with Luke, and he is different than her typical type. So
and by the way, he's a really good actor. I mean, I love his voice. His voice is great. And
great. I know. He's been wonderful.
Yeah.
So you have kept, in a sense, you have kept Abby as the center of the show, but I think I read somewhere you intentionally wanted to bring out the focus and make it more of an ensemble show, and really intentionally see the O'Briens as a whole.
Well, I did, because I felt that there was such a strong cast and such good characters, and the family is what really matters. And also, I mean, again, I don't mean to keep harping on Cheers, but if the first half of the Cheers run, if the first 5 years of the Cheers run was really romantic comedy between Sam and Diane and other people on the outside, the other characters commenting on that, the second half of the run, the last 6 years, was an ensemble comedy. It was a workplace comedy, because there was never really a Sam and Rebecca that took the place of Sam and Diane. They were just two other characters in there, and so in a way, I would say that if this show was sort of a romantic drama about Abby and Trace, you can't really recreate that. No. I pulled out and felt that it would be more of a story of this family and how they're coming together, and how they love each other. There was a line in the last episode that I really liked, where Margaret was talking to Connor, and she said, and he was talking about the sitting around the fire pit eating s'mores, and he says, "Say you look calmer already," and he says, "Well, I don't know why that is," and he says, "Well, it sounds like you come from a happy family," she says. And he says, "Well, you don't know the whole story," and that sort of both are true. I mean, it's a family that's had a lot of trials, but it's a happy family.
Yeah,
and I just wanted to emphasize that.
I love that. I think you've done a brilliant job at that, all of you on the show, because like we said, how Connor has really grown up this season. I honestly think that we could say that the family mirrors Connor's journey a little bit, in that the family has grown up this season, and the family has figured out how to support each other. The family has figured out how to have deep conversations, and let's talk about our past a little bit. Let's move forward.
No, there's been moments of reflection and all that. There was the scene in the juice bar with Mick and Megan and Megan Ori and Mick and Abby, where Tree just acted the hell out of that scene. He was so good in that scene, and that was a beautiful scene, because they really talked about a period of time that the show's never really examined. That period of time after she left, and what they all went through, and how bad that was, how hard that was.
And we want that. We want that as fans. We want to hear them talk about that and process this. And you've given us so many good conversations about their past as a family this season, and we love it. So keep that up.
Thank
please.
you. Thank you. Thank you. It was very fun to write, because they're they're such interesting characters and they're such good actors
Mhm.
that I just felt every time I wrote something, I felt they'll be able to do this and they'll be able to really make it sing.
Yeah.
It's really nice.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. I wondered if it was a bit tedious as a writer to try to, you had to tie up loose ends from other seasons, but it sounds like maybe it wasn't tedious at all.
No, I mean, I always was kind of excited about that part of it, you know,
Good.
about what do they really think about that, or what do they, you
Yeah.
know, if you can find a way to do it that where you're not treading over stuff you've talked about before.
Right.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
it is kind of odd. I mean, I mean, you know, everybody wants Mick and Megan to get back together again, but they have a lot to work through.
Yes.
No.
They
'Cause
really
were
do.
divorced, and she left, and
Yes.
that's a hard thing to get over, you know.
And then they're essentially new people. 17 years have gone by. They
Right. Well, that was again another line I liked was when they were worried about the plane going down, and the mother Megan
no.
said, Meg, you know, the characters and the actors in this have so many of the same names.
Yes.
Jess and Jesse and Megan, and
Yes.
anyway. But yes, when she said, I love him, I like him,
Yeah.
and I like the man he's become. And
Yes.
I thought I like that.
Very good
Mhm.
line. Very
Yeah.
good.
From the author of Miracles and Menorahs and History of Us comes a story about the changing nature of love and what it really feels like to be home for the holidays. Love and Lockcase is the third book in Stacey Agdern's Friendship and Festival series. Available on October 12th from Tool Publishing and wherever books are sold. For more information about Stacey, visit her at her website, staceyagdern.com. That's staceyagdern.com.
Well, we touched on it a little bit with Connor and the courtroom scenes, and you resonating a little bit more with Connor. Is there a favorite storyline in Connor's storyline that you really liked and appreciated, or what was that like?
You know, he was fun all the way through. I mean, it was I just liked him, you know, realizing that the firm was doing a bad thing and that he had to be a step up and do the right thing, and then figuring out how to do it, and then, you know, walking out on his own, and I love him with Margaret. I thought, and that was very interesting actually, because it's been kind of a slow build with Margaret, but I noticed that really from the beginning of when she showed up, because she's such a good actress, there was that they had real chemistry even when they were just, you know, working together. That I thought, well, that will go somewhere.
Yeah.
And
that wasn't the plan the whole time.
Huh?
That wasn't the plan the whole time for Margaret.
Oh yeah, no, it was.
Okay, good.
Yeah. But it worked out really better than I thought it was going to, because she's great. And yeah, no, I like him, you know, the opening of the law firm, and I like him. I like the scene when he, you know, accepts help from his father on fixing the place up and all that, and that was a nice scene. And I like all of it. I like the way he's growing. I like the way he's growing.
Now, are you going to leave us on a cliffhanger on Sunday with Connor and his new case that he's working on?
Do you want me to tell you? You want me to do a spoiler? I will say this: there are a few cliffhangers.
Oh, okay.
Yes,
Okay.
There are a few cliffhangers.
I'll prepare myself.
If what?
I'll prepare myself.
Yes, there are, but I won't say what they are.
Okay.
They are, but yes, we wanted to make it as hard as possible for them not to pick it up for the 6th season.
Yes. Good. Good. That's good. That's what we want. Well, I think the addition of Connor's courtroom scenes was so time for that. If he's going to be a lawyer, show the courtroom, and he's just become a true hero of the show.
Yeah, no, that was great. I love those scenes. It's actually they're a little bit difficult to shoot because on Vancouver Island they have a lot of things, but they don't really have any courtrooms. So that was we kind of had to make that up. But yeah, no, I like that from and you know, I was able to rely on, as I said, learning some TV law and Boston legal,
Right.
and on the Darrow shows too.
Yeah.
So I was able to kind of do a little bit of that, but a lot of those scenes, you know, were written by the other writers too. There were Mark Jordan Legan wrote the scene in the courtroom about the
The forklift or something.
yeah, the forklift, yeah, the one about pay inequity, yeah, that one. And Nancy Silvers wrote a lot of the scene of the
Okay.
in the boardroom where he comes in and does the
He just
does
does his all.
does the little sting with his
Yeah.
letter and all that, and that was great. So
So
kudos to the rest of the staff too. They did very good.
Yes.
kudos. We know it's a team effort. We do. We know that not, a lot goes into this, but okay, we were going to ask too, how much do the actors and actresses, how do they have any say on where their story arc goes or what they do? How does that work?
I have gotten to be very close with them all. They are. So I would say that now they probably, but no, no. I mean, I'm writing them and giving the direction and coming up with the stories, and they're generally very happy with what I've come up with.
Good.
Okay, good.
I think if there is a next season, probably we'll talk more because I know them better now.
Yeah.
That's true.
Another scene that I really liked was the stuff with Thomas and Mick on the hike and all that, which was a lovely scene. And boy, the locations found great places for it, and it just looked beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, that was a good example of
lovely.
what you've done so many times of like, it's tenderhearted, but it's comedic. There's both the tenderness and the comedy, and that's beautiful.
Right. Well, I'm friends with Stephen Moffat, who ran Doctor Who and
Yes.
wrote Coupling and all that. And he started as a comedy. I started as a comedy writer, of course, and writing for Cheers. And he said, when you write a comedy, a half-hour comedy, you have to have 3 jokes on every page.
Oh.
And when you write a drama with comedy, if you do 1 joke every 3 pages, everybody thinks you're a comic genius.
Oh.
So you can kind of can relax a little bit and spread it out. But there is a certain amount. I mean, I know there is more humor in the show than there was before, and the actors are all really, really good at that. Treat is hilarious. It's hilarious. In the scene when he after the plane crash, when he was trying to talk, make less of the plane crash, saying it was a necessary urgent landing and all that. He was so wonderful. He was so good in that. But he was both funny and you felt for him too. Yeah.
You felt for him, but I was watching that scene and it took me a little while. I was like, this is hilarious. Like he's being funny. Like, like, wait a minute. It was great.
Yeah. Well, he likes that.
He's so dry.
Yes.
Oh, I love it.
Yes.
So yeah, we are excited. We're excited for the finale. But what is it like working with a cast like this? You kind of alluded to the fact that you've gotten to know them all pretty well. Was that just over the course of filming? And
yeah, because I met them. I met them a few times when I first took on the job. But then after that, with COVID and all that, we couldn't meet. I mean, we didn't. We had matter of fact, we had the first table read for the show on Zoom.
Oh, wow.
We didn't even meet then. So I didn't really meet them, face to face, meet them until we were shooting.
Yeah.
And they were all really wonderful people, and they were very, happy and happy to be there. And, been, I guess, 2 years since they'd been shooting, so a
Right.
lot of them have had to have babies, and so there
Right.
were babies
Yes.
around, and everything was great, and it was
Yeah.
marvelous. But I really I had about as much fun as I've ever had on a show. It was great.
Great.
It was great. And you know, we shoot most of these scenes on actual real locations.
Mhm.
There's only
Yes.
like the only set we had was Mick's office
Mhm.
in the which I wanted to see, but I wanted to see his office in Chesapeake Shores because he has
Yeah.
to have an office there, and
Yeah.
Mhm.
he was always working in the house. And I thought, where he has to have an office. So
Yes.
it was a lovely office, a beautiful set that was
Yeah.
designed,
Mhm.
and but the rest of it was all real locations. And so you're in this lovely place, in this
Yeah.
you know beautiful place, and everybody, you know, not enough stuff is filmed there
Mhm.
Yeah.
that the people aren't still excited to have you shooting there. You know, it isn't like, you know, in my neighborhood, you know, oh, they're shooting again, God,
Right.
you know. But they were it's a very hospitable place,
Mhm.
and
Who
beautiful.
just called Vancouver North Hollywood? Like
Well, I
I
mean,
think everybody.
Canadian
I
Hollywood.
think they film. I think
Mhm.
the three cities that most things are filmed in
Yeah.
are Atlanta, Vancouver, and Los Angeles. And I know that Los Angeles is third.
Mhm.
I'm not sure if Vancouver or Atlanta are number one, but
Mm.
you know, they do a lot of filming there. Now, this is
Okay.
obviously not in Vancouver itself. It's
Mhm.
on Vancouver Island,
Right.
but it's a beautiful place. And you know, you're there with everybody. Most everybody's staying in the same hotel.
Mhm.
So it's a fun, very real feeling of togetherness. You're
Yeah.
actually kind of sorry when it ends, you know.
Well,
Yes.
tell us who is the most likely to forget their lines.
You know, they don't forget their lines.
Oh.
Anybody does. I don't think anybody ever went up much. No, can't
Now-
say it. I mean, Connor had a few big speeches too, and now
Mhm.
he was good. No, I don't have any stories like that.
All right.
Cute.
All right. Well, one question I had when I was doing some research, I noticed that you and Mark have done a lot of things together. Now, did you
Well,
take them with you to Chesapeake Shores, or
Mark and I have known each other since we went to college together. Okay.
Oh.
So
Oh,
I've known Mark about as long as I've known anybody. We were actually best men at each other's weddings.
oh, wow.
And we're still married to the same people.
Yeah.
And so we've written together off and on. I mean, we're not writing partners, but we created a show called Thanks together, and he's worked on a number of my shows. I worked on a number of his shows.
Mhm.
So when I got the gig, I thought, well, you know, I want to have, you know, one writer that I just am really simpatico with and that I feel is right for me. So I definitely brought him on. And in addition to Nancy Silvers and Brian Ross and Gina Gold and Arroyo Koo, who I'd worked with before too. But you know, he went up with me to Vancouver and was you know, kind of my right hand man. He's tremendous. He's great.
Yeah.
And so, you know, and when we had to at times, you know, write like a third of a script over the weekend, you
Right.
know.
Mhm.
And so, you know, we'd split up the scenes, and he'd do one scene and I do another scene, and we'd put them together and rewrite them again, and then
Yeah.
send it off and hope it worked. And it
Yeah.
generally did.
Yeah. We think so. We think that.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's awesome that you're just so in sync, especially with having to like redo the scripts, and then your voices probably, since you all have worked together so long, it probably wasn't hard to make it more seamless. Whereas if you were writing with somebody who hadn't ever written with, that might be a little hard keeping the voice the same.
Right. And we all had to write in the voice of the show too.
Mhm.
Right.
Although I think that you know,
Yeah.
just in the voice of the various actors. But again, it helps that when you get to know the actors and you know how they talk and how they sound and what they get
Mhm.
through and what they can do. And
Yeah.
you know, I
Mhm.
loved writing for Treat. He was just wonderful. And
Yeah.
he was very enthusiastic about the show, about the direction
Yeah.
the show was going in. Yeah. Yeah.
That's good. I
Mm.
mean, we've read and seen some interactions between him and Robert Buckley, so we know
Mhm.
that was his idea. Or
I don't know if it was his idea that he get the part, but as soon as he heard he was up for it, he called me and he said, "You're right away. I know this guy. He's great. He's wonderful." And that was good because we had no time and we had like
right,
literally a
Right.
weekend to cast this part.
right.
So and I went back and saw some stuff he'd done, but I had never really.
Mhm.
I certainly hadn't worked with him before. I hadn't worked with anybody on this show before, except the guy who plays Carter, Milburn. He was on Darrow and
Oh,
Darrow. But,
Milburn. That's right.
yeah.
Okay, it looks like he
he
comes
was
back in the finale.
yeah.
No.
Yeah. He does. I can't always remember what happens in which episode, but yeah, but yeah, I worked with him on Darrow and Darrow. I don't know if you remember him in Darrow and Darrow. He was great in Darrow and Darrow.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
but other than that, I hadn't worked with anybody before. So but when I heard that Treat spoke highly of him and said he was a nice guy, and I wanted to, I was hoping that everybody would be. I mean, when there's a phrase I say, how can I phrase this? I have a non-jerk policy where I don't like to work with jerks.
Yes.
I'll use the word.
Keeping that hallmark.
Yeah.
I'll use the word jerk instead of the word I usually use. But it was nice to know that he was a decent guy, and actually, since he was stepping into a rather difficult position.
Yeah.
He was very respectful for everybody, and very modest and all that. He did not throw his weight around or anything.
Mhm. Yeah.
That's great.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Let's talk about this non-jerk policy that you have. No.
Yeah.
How do you make sure? I can see that you're probably very diplomatic in this, but how do you actually make sure that that's
Well, it's hard. I mean, if certainly when you're stepping into a show where it's all already been cast, where the show's been running for 2 years, you don't have any control over that. And in general, when you meet people, they put on a good face, and so you don't always know when you're hiring a jerk. But you can do a little bit of research on people's behavior and what they've done before and how they act and all that sort of thing.
Yeah.
I mean, I've worked with the occasional jerk, and it let me put it this way: if they're good at what they do, and they're a jerk, you can kind of put up with it.
okay. Yeah.
If they're not good at what they do and they're a jerk, then you don't want to put up with it.
Oh yeah.
Right. Right.
Okay.
Makes
That's
complete
it.
sense.
But everybody on the show is just a joy to work with. It's really a very pleasant.
Yeah.
Mhm.
They seem like it. And I think that because some of my very favorite scenes are when the family's all together around the table, or where the siblings are all together at the bridge. You can feel that they have that.
Well, one of the things that I did kind of without even thinking about it was that I would do scenes between Kevin and Abby. And I would do scenes on the bench between Abby and Bree.
Right.
And on the and when we did that scene on the bench out on the point, on the bench between Abby and Bree said, I've never sat here before.
Oh.
I've never sat here before. I've never done that. I've never done one of these scenes because it was very discreet. Everything was kind of separated and all that. So it didn't have, and the scene with Bree and Kevin, when they were talking about their romances and all that sort of thing in the office, when those were not, I mean, I wanted to mix them up more and get the feeling that they're really a family, and that they obviously everybody loves the scene with the three sisters.
Yes.
Everybody wanted a scene. It's funny, you shoot all these things before they air. They're
Mhm.
all shot before they air.
Yeah.
So you don't know what people are going to respond to or what they're not going to
Mhm.
respond to. You don't have a chance
Right.
to adjust to that. Say, oh boy, people like Luke, we better give them more Luke and stuff like that.
That's
Yeah.
true.
They're already shot. One of the things I noticed that what people really liked is the scenes with the sisters on the bed eating ice cream. You know,
Right.
Mhm.
and I originally had that in there, but certain executives said, well, no, we've done that. And so, well, okay, I'll move it somewhere else.
Yeah.
But I think, people want to see that.
They
Mhm.
do.
People want to see
Yeah.
that. It's like
Yes.
people want to see, it wasn't like you had two scenes where Shatner and Spader are smoking cigars on the balcony in Boston Legal. And then you said, no, we can't do that again because we've done it.
Right.
People like familiarity.
Mhm. Yeah. And it brings like a coziness, especially if you have siblings that you've done that with. It's kind of like this nice like family feel where, there's somebody's gonna pull out a spoon and they're all gonna eat ice cream.
Yeah, I mean, in general, when it's possible, it's
Yeah.
better on this show to do scenes outside
Mhm.
because outside is so beautiful.
Oh yes.
Right.
So those scenes that I did like that were generally done outdoors, which was
Yeah.
fine. But
Yeah.
Yeah.
I kind of missed that bed scene.
Yeah. Yes, me too. Another character you have kind of started incorporating more is Jessica Sipos' character, Sarah. She's always been kind of siloed out with Kevin. And so her talking to Jess
Yeah.
and with a very, very deep conversation that's very tricky. I mean, that was pulling on the heartstrings, and it was also nice to incorporate her more into the family because
Well, yeah. Well, first of all, she's a great actress, and she's a member of the family now. So
Yeah.
why not? It's good, and she gets to do a lot of really good acting in the last episode.
She did.
Fantastic. And so she I really love her. I love Kevin too. He's a Brendan is a fine actor, and he was he kind of functions as the big brother, although he's not the oldest, but he's still in a way he's kind of like father to these kids when the father was away on work, and so he still got that on his shoulders, and I like that, and I like the scenes with his fire chief when he was realizing he had early dementia and all that. He played those scenes really well, and he's a really good actor. He's a really good actor, and so when they have a lot of good stuff in the finale.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, I think you and the writers have been so generous with the characters this season, and you've been given them more, more relationship, more depth, more humor, and that's just worked so well. I feel like the actors have risen to that.
Well, so I said I was lucky in that everybody was good.
You're right.
Everybody was really good. So there wasn't, because lots of times when you have a cast on a show, there's sort of that one, you realize there's that one person that you have to write away from or just give them a little bit because they're not, let's face it, they're not that good. But everybody in this is so good. And an hour, 40 minutes or 45 minutes or however long it is really not enough time to tell these stories. And not everybody is in every episode, as you noticed, but there's so much to say that then the last one I was thinking, wow, a lot happened in this show. A lot happening in that. What if there's too much happening in this show? Because also, you get 10 episodes. I mean, used to be that shows had 26 episodes a season, and you gotta combine everything. And so it moves. For one thing, I do think that the show moves fairly quickly now, and it has a good pace to it.
Yes.
Because there's a lot going on. There's a lot going on.
Yes.
Yeah, thanks. It's hard to podcast
maybe too much. but everybody has a story that is really compelling, and even for a while the Jess and David are mainly doing comic relief characters, but that's good too.
Right.
And then they'll get into their stuff too.
Yes.
And so I don't know, it's almost like the characters are really alive with you when you're there, and the actors are there and everything, and there's just a million possibilities come to your mind. And Hallmark, to their credit, I mean, they really went with it. They really said we wanted to push this year and make it a little bit more, not edgy, but a little bit more real.
Yeah.
So that when I had the character of Luke, who was an ex-convict, the actors were kind of surprised that they were letting us do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
And,
Not so squeaky clean.
Yeah. And so that and the stuff with dementia, and the stuff with the with dyslexia, Evan's dyslexia, and the law firm being kind of evil and all that. We were able to really do stories that seemed exciting.
Yeah, definitely exciting. I mean, even Connor, how he had that back and forth with the judge about the wages, and the discrimination against women in work. I mean, that was, you kind of go, well, this is like a real thing they're talking about.
Yeah. Well, that was that was the idea. I mean, you want to write about real stuff going on. I mean, in a sense, we had to make the choice. By the way, to whether we dealt with COVID or not dealt with COVID. And we decided to just kind of ignore it and say that this place is either set before COVID or after COVID. I don't know. It's just, I just felt like everybody's going to be a bit COVIDed up about it now. So we, and a lot of shows did deal with it. And I just thought, no, this Chesapeake Shores is apart from COVID. It's like the story always takes place in the summer. It's always the summer. It's never the winter. It never gets cold in Chesapeake.
Well, I think that was brilliant because just on an entertainment baseline, you go to escape. It's wonderful escapism, and so you don't want to deal with COVID.
We'd like to take a second from this episode of the podcast to celebrate our sponsor of this episode, and that is the Hallmarkies Patreon.
Do you love Hallmarkies podcast?
Do you want an inside scoop into what happens on the podcast?
Do you want early access to episodes and loads of cool perks?
Now is the time to become a patron of Hallmarkies podcast.
By becoming a patron, you get to access our patron Facebook group.
You can request episodes or even be a guest on the podcast.
And most importantly, any patron can join our monthly movie watch-alongs with stars like Paul Campbell, Natalie Hall, and more.
It's as low as $2 a month to join in and become a special part of the Hallmarkies family.
Please consider, and we will love you forever.
Go to patreon.com/Hallmarkies.
That's patreon.com/Hallmarkies.
Who do you personally, which character do you most relate to or see yourself in? Kari and Anne and I had this discussion, and I think I was more of an Abby and Connor combined personality, and then Kari, you were.
I thought maybe Bree and Connor. I don't know if that was just the birth order thing. That's where I fall in my family, or anyway.
Well, I mean, you're the writer of it, so you're kind of in everyone. That, but I say the person that I personally identify with the most is Mick, because I'm the father to my family. I have grown kids. I have grandkids. I have, you've kind of seen the, you have your regrets and you have your, there's a lot of life you've led, and so and certainly the scene with Thomas and Mick in the on the hike was very much based on me and my brothers, because we did that when I was a kid. We hiked the Appalachian Trail in Virginia, and we never got together and did it again. But we could have, and you just see, you're just so different, but you're always the same. You're always brothers, And so I would say probably the person I'm closest to is Mick.
Yeah. Well, that's cool to hear, because actually Mick has become more likable to me over this season, more vulnerable, and him just tender, like a little more tender with his own family too. So if you're putting yourself into him.
Well, there was that moment on the porch when with Abby, where he's saying Laura, and they were talking about just what she was talking about. He was saying he wasn't always there for her, and she was saying, well, yeah, but now I resented you for that at the time, but now that I have kids of my own, I realize you just do what you can. It's always hard, and you always mess up some way, And I like that. That was
I like that.
Good, it was a really nice moment between them.
Yes.
And I got to hear Treat sing, because he's a very good singer.
Yes,
he did. He a true alua or something like that. I like that. Well, I just cannot.
And by the way, I am Irish, so that is also part of the.
Oh,
my dad was born in Ireland, so I do have that. And Mark is too, actually. So we have that Irish Catholic background that can come through.
Well, maybe I have one more question. Do you have? It's a little bit of a running joke between some people who've watched the show for a long time. Do we have Dylan O'Malley somewhere on the future? This is the
oh yes.
This is an interesting thing.
Dylan O'Malley.
The elusive Dylan O'Malley.
I don't know. That of course was before my time on the show.
Yes.
I know that in the books, I know how Dylan O'Malley figures into it, and I let's see, how should I put it? There was a tendency in the past from Hallmark to sort of shut down storylines that they didn't particularly want people to. They didn't think people would be interested in.
Gotcha.
They didn't think people would be interested in seeing any romantic storyline with Nell.
Mm.
And now I did a sort of one this year with Arthur Driscoll, and they were fine with it. So it is possible that I might revisit if I can figure out any possible way to say. I mean, because she went over to Ireland to visit with Dylan O'Malley, and she came back and she never talked about him again.
Never.
Right.
So I don't know what happened, but I'm curious too. I'm curious too. It's funny when I worked on a show called Terriers. I don't know if you're familiar with that show.
I'm not,
but it ended. It was a one season show. It was a private detective show in San Diego. It's got a real huge cult following.
Ooh,
but it ended with the two leads. Well, one of them was on his way to go to jail, to prison, and so they were at a stoplight, and you could turn one way and go to Mexico and run away from the law, or you could turn the other way and go to law, and that was how it ended. It ended with them stopped at the stoplight.
Oh,
and nobody ever knew why we did that. And people often ask, what did they decide? Where did they go? Which way did they turn? And my answer is always is, I don't really know.
Right.
Because I hadn't written that part yet. We might have an idea of how it was going to go, but until you actually write it down and start thinking it out, you don't know. So I don't know. know. So when it comes to asking about the cliffhangers, I don't know.
Okay, fair enough.
Well, I like that. I think I've heard that there's different ways that writers approach their stories. Are you a godlike figure where you know everything, and or are you discovering your people, your characters along the way? And it sounds like maybe you're one of a to discover them along the way?
I mean, I think a little bit of both, actually. I mean, you generally have an idea of where it's going to go,
Mhm.
but often when you are going there, you realize that's not quite right.
Okay.
You got to take another detour, or maybe go an entirely different way.
Mhm.
Okay.
And one of the things you'll learn in writing television,
Yeah.
is constantly rewriting stuff.
Mm.
That there's always another choice. If somebody comes up to you and says, "I don't like this scene," an executive or an actor or something like that, there's always another choice. There's always another way to approach it. You could just do it. Well, what if the ideas, the characters are their outlooks are reversed? What if, there's always innumerable ways to write a scene.
Cool.
And you can just discover them as you go along.
Yeah.
So I did have an idea of where this season was going to go.
Mhm.
But it didn't necessarily all follow through the way I thought it was going to.
Right. Right.
Well, I cannot imagine being done with the O'Briens after the finale of season 5. So I am so hopeful that we get this season 6. And I think
I'm cautiously optimistic.
Yes. Okay.
I've been there before where it was, things looked really good and then they didn't go.
Okay.
But I'm cautiously optimistic.
Yes.
We will also be cautiously optimistic then, along with you. And we just want to thank you for joining us today on Chesapeake Chats.
This was great, and I really do. I like what you have to say about the show, and I like that you, first of all, that you appreciate what we do, but that you seem to get it. I mean, you seem to get it. I mean, a lot of things that I sort of thought, I wonder if that came across, and then you will mention it, and I thought, it did come across. That's good.
I'm so glad about that. Well, you've made a really fun show, and we appreciate that. And
Thank you. I'm very proud of this show.
Yes.
Good. I think you should be. Phoef, where can people find you on social media?
Well, I have a website that I seldom update called phoefsutton.com. That's PHOEF is my first name, but PHOEFSUTTON. And then I'm on Facebook, of course, because I'm old, as my daughter points out to me. And I'm on Twitter, and I'm on Instagram. Always Phoef Sutton, whatever, at Phoef Sutton, whatever. And I also I do a podcast. I do a podcast with my writing partner Mark Jordan Legan. We do a podcast once a month called Film Freaks Forever, where we discuss old movies and new movies and new TV and old TV, and we have one this month about 1970s miniseries about the beginning of the limited series movement, and we have all kinds of weird topics, like we do one on ventriloquist dummy movies.
All right, that's fun.
And science fiction, Star Wars ripoffs after Star Wars came out. That, so it's very fun. It's fun. It's called Film Freaks Forever, and it's available on all the iTunes, Spotify, and et cetera. It's awesome. Writer's Bone Network. So
well,
and I've written a number of books too. I've written a number of novels. I've written 3 mystery novels about a character named Crush, of a few standalone novels.
Okay. Well, you are a man to discover then. We need to go to your website, go to your Facebook page even.
Yes.
And see what else you've written. I have a feeling I would like it because of what you've done with this season of Chesapeake Shores. So.
Well, thank you. And it's been a blast. It's been an absolute blast.
Well, everyone tune in to the season finale of Chesapeake Shores. And we just want to thank our guest again, Phoef Sutton. So we will see you. Hopefully, maybe talk to you next year about season 6.
Yes.
I hope so. Yes.
Well, Kari, that was such a fun conversation with Phoef. I mean, he honestly is kind of a TV legend, having done Cheers. I mean, that show got 2 Emmys. He has elevated Chesapeake Shores. to a whole new level.
Yeah.
And just hearing some of the stories behind his early beginnings on Cheers, and then the sad news about Darrow and Darrow. I think that's the only disappointing part about this conversation. You guys, okay, we need an intervention with Hallmark. Listen, we've resurrected Hannah Swenson. We have resurrected the Signed, Sealed, Delivered Postables. We have resurrected the Gourmet Detective series after a few-year hiatus. We can do it with Darrow and Darrow. We need another Darrow and Darrow. If you love Darrow and Darrow, listen, we're gonna do something. I don't know what, but we got to figure out some kind of movie marathon, hashtag write the people. Like, we got to write Miss Lucas up in Hallmark and all her people up there and ask them for another Darrow and Darrow, because
it's already written. We just heard that from Phoef.
Yeah, he's got it written. He's just got it. He's probably, you got to tweak stuff and edit, because that's the writing process. But
you guys, anything he's writing, as we're finding out, he is like TV land royalty, in my opinion. I mean, he's like, he can take something and write it so well and create this amazing things we want to watch. So let's get this Darrow and Darrow back. Let's hope for another season of Chesapeake Shores. We want that. Oh, I would love that.
So much goodness tonight. So thanks for tuning in.
Yes, I'm so glad that you did. And we want to hear from you. We always want to hear from you in the comment section on YouTube, and give a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, of course. Give a review and a rating on iTunes if you've listened there. Of course, we want you to find the Hallmarkies podcast all over social media at Hallmarkies Podcast or at Hallmarkies Pod. And we desire to bring you all of your Hallmark hopes and dreams and reviews and recaps. And so definitely find us there. There's a merch store that we have, Hallmark related things. There's a Patreon group that is too much fun for just like what, Kaycee? Less than, or
I think it's
$2 a month?
I think it's $2 a month, and we do watch-alongs with some of your favorite stars. We've had Lacey Chabert has been to one. We've had Nina Wyman Swift, who has done she's written several movies. We love her. I think Paul Campbell has joined us on one. Brittany Bristow. I mean, so many things. $2 a month, and it's a very intimate experience because
$2 a month.
There's a few of us, so
it's totally fun. And plus you get to join a community of other people who love Hallmark stuff just like you. And so, you can kind of fangirl about things just like they want to, or fanboy. It's just a blast. So join the Patreon group. Hey, Kaycee, where can people find you on social media? You
can find me at Hallmark My Words on Twitter, and I will be tweeting the season finale of Chesapeake Shores.
That's great. Yeah. Oh, you should have told Phoef. Oh, he'll see it. He'll see you tweeting all about it. That'll be awesome. Well, come find me over at Instagram at Hallmark Comics, and I'd love to interact with you there. Otherwise, you guys watch the season finale. Let us know what you think about it, and join us for our recap on Tuesday. Thanks for joining us tonight. Bye.
Bye.